when I was growing up, and you tell me if it's the same for you. When I was growing up, you'd have your family is who you have to register what life is, who's cool, who's not. And whenever you had family reunions, the people that always got flocked to, it didn't matter if you had a lawyer in your family that's making six figures, or if you had, somebody that's I don't know, let's say owns their own business or whatever it is. It was always the first responders or military guys in the family that everybody flocked to and showed all this respect to, and seemed to be the life of the party in some sort of way, even if they themselves were kind of dry. But people always wanted to ask them questions and stuff. So as a kid growing up looking at that, I think that's why I gravitated, other than having my dad and other people close to me that were cops or military, but like seeing the interaction at family events, they were always the most respected. And I think that kind of what drew me to it.
We didn't do the whole family reunion a whole lot, which is itself not good, but that's a topic for another day. But I would say what I really gravitated to was just the fact that my dad was so passionate about it. And
Okay.
I just the way and I'll tell you right now, I will never was and never will be half the cop my dad was, but just to see how passionate he was about it, it just if I can kind of pick on my little brain when I was a little kid, it just like this is what you're supposed to do, And I think honestly, as you get older, you think about it, a lot of jobs, yeah, you can make a lot of money, but for like-minded people like myself, they're meaningless. Where I think law enforcement, yeah, there's some BS calls and yeah, there's some dumb shit that you go to, but a lot of this stuff is very meaningful, especially if you do it the right way. And so if that's quote unquote what you get your rocks off on, and that's what you like to do, being a cop and being a firefighter, EMT, whatever, doctors even, uh, actually, like again, cliche, to actually help somebody, to actually do something that means something. Military, let's throw that one in there too. For me, you can't beat that. Like, yeah, there's stuff you can go do, and you could work in a factory, and yeah, sure, like making those ball bearings will help somebody down the line, but it's not the same.
Yeah. And that's kind of one of the things I try to use with the podcast to make people think outside the box. Um, because when I think of first responders, there's two main groups, maybe three, that I think are left in the wind and we don't think about it. But teachers see this shit. They see the writing on the wall well before the cops do, most of the time, because they are dealing with kids that they already know that they're going to be a problem for the law. And that is a good insight on what type of environment they're having at home. So I don't think we get teachers involved enough, and we definitely don't give them enough authority um, to start trying to help handle this stuff. And this is where I come in with first responder, frontline worker. It's because they're on the front line of issues that are developing that later become a big problem for us. But that is one really respected job that I think makes a big difference. More so than, sorry, ball bearing makers, but uh, I'm
I
not
don't know
so.
why we're picking on those poor
Yeah,
guys. They're
fuck
just
them
doing the best they
guys.
can, and we're just like
Fuck
ragging
them.
on them.
I don't
Who
like.
cares about ball
I
bearings?
don't like ball bearing makers to. I wouldn't piss on them if they was on fire. Fuck them. No, I'm just kidding.
All ball bearing makers are bastards. How
They
about that?
they.
Yeah.
That's right. um, but so you got teachers, nurses. I think nurses is another one, especially in the ER. I feel bad for them.
That's right.
Yeah. So you got nurses, and then what was my third one? Teachers, nurses, and I'm blanking on the third one. I just
Strippers.
strip. Absolutely.
Strippers. Yeah,
you know, they,
absolutely.
they got to feed their family too. So, but yeah, I'm with you. My wife is now a nurse. We've been together since about seventh grade, and she decided, around 38 years old, that she's like, "What would you think about me becoming a nurse?" I was like, "Holy shit!" Like, that's the first time she'd ever really mentioned a career. Like, she's had jobs, don't get me wrong, but she's like, she wanted to do what I consider a life of service. You're helping people directly, and So for me, it was really cool. I embraced it right away. I was like, hell yeah, go for it, girl. Like, and now she is a full fledged nurse, and how she hates life, it's really flipped on her. I was like, see, I was like, you start helping people, you're living in that honeymoon stage, and then the reality of helping people sometimes weighs down on you because it will run you ragged.
And the sad part about that, and not to take a dark turn, but there are people that call for help all the time, and they don't need it. Like, they just need to help themselves, and I'm sure that happens in hospitals too.
Yeah.
Like, "Dude, go take an Advil, like, you don't need to be in the ER right now."
Yep.
And I'm sure nurses see this too, where people become so selfish that, people are trying to help them, and they get mad about the help they're getting, and it's just insane to me. But my wife kinda works in that field, and you hear some of the stories, and it's just, man, we are really terrible to each other. And yeah, like cops, we make fun of nurses, and we do all that stuff too. But I mean, I'm sure, and I know they deal with the same type of stuff where it's you trying your best to help somebody do the right thing. And I get you're paid, like you're not like some volunteer or anything like that, but you're trying to be a good person, lead a good life, and people they want more and more, and whatever you do is not good enough.